well, almost $6 million for 6 months. That's about $1.192 million per project manager. That seems to be rather extreme.
Yeah, that's just not for 1 year to carry over into the previous
How
next
long
year.
does that carry over to then?
Do you know have that carry over? We can get that number for you. That's how long that will be.
Okay, that's for 10 people, that should be an awful long time, like many,
Yes.
many, many years.
Yes.
So I think if we have a short-term need to get locks done, based on the amount of project managers and time, we're probably talking about 5 years worth of project managers time here. So something seems to be a little bit array in this. So if we could
We can
clarify
get
that,
that for
thank
you.
you.
I
Commissioner,
think
going back to Chairman Hatchett's question, I did my math a little bit different. Math might be different in Dublin than it is in Vidalia, Mr. Chairman. On the 93 million for the 126 bed facilities, I had it coming out to be about 185, not too far off where you were. But I point out that if we make those single occupancy, we're now spending, pushing almost $400,000 per bed. And that seems, I understand that there may be only one or two people that are doing this, but that seems that's gonna be hard to stomach. We'll have to figure out something on that one.
Representative Williams.
On that,
Okay.
on those modular units, that's a one-time cost that they're once they're in place, they can be in place for a long period of time, up to 20, 30 years. So they're not just a unit, and we can move them around if we see fit. But the plan is to kind of keep them put while we go through our plan, and you'll see later on that in the 10-year strategic plan I spoke about earlier, to kind of help us with that. So these are high grade, high security modular units.
You got some other questions?
Representative Williams.
We moved you to that mic, and I'd be dang if they didn't cut that one off too. Representative.
Try the other one.
Try this one.
Now it's
right. I can't keep up with you all up
You
there,
just,
boy.
you just got the wrong,
Rank has its privileges.
you sending the wrong vibes, the wrong place somewhere.
Do things first to both of the chairman's figures. I'm certainly glad you don't get Marriott points with that. But my big question is, the word module always brings a certain thing to my mind. Now, we're talking about security. We aged out non-secure units. And so we're saying that modules today are better than the prisons of yesterday. Just the 30-second view of the construction of a module unit. I think of mobile homes when you say that.
Yeah, there's a lot more. It's a lot more hard than a mobile home. These actual modular units that we've done our due diligence and actually went down myself and took a look at the manufacturing of these modular units. They actually have poured concrete walls in between these modular units that they bring in and put together. Like I said, they can withstand and stand on the ground for at least 20, 30 years of a modular unit. That they look just like, if you walk into one, blindfold you and walk you into one, you would think you were in a dorm, a prison dorm. So they're not modular units. They're modular units, but they're not constructed as a modular home. They're a lot more thicker and a lot more secure than a modular home would be.
Any other questions about the modular units before we allow Commissioner to move on again? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You got
So
another?
on lock replacement, you may have said this, and I apologize if I did not hear you. What's the time frame on the lock replacements?
Total 5 to 6 years when we complete all lock and control placements with the current funding that's recommended to do that on lock and control, lock and control projects.
Are the vendors' ability to do that the reason for the time, or is it because of having a place to put offenders during the repair? the
A little bit
issue?
of both right now, but I think really it's the locking design. So it's not just replacing the lock itself. You have to go in and replace the whole lock and control system, so you're not using keys. So we rewire the dorms. We do any kind of hardening projects that we may have to do inside the dorms at the same time we're
So,
doing the lock and control projects.
Commissioner, I can't express, and you and I've had these conversations about the locking mechanisms and the issues there. I can't stress to you my feelings enough on the importance of getting those done and done expediently. And I think you would have the support of those in this room to do whatever you have to do to
Yes, sir.
break all speed records at getting those done.
That's a good segue into the next slide.
Okay.
Facility emergency and repairs, implement a maintenance and repair plan to utilize contractors to supplement facility personnel, harden facilities, prevent damage, and keep existing beds online. Provide an increased funding for emergency repairs and facility maintenance to support, to bring beds online and to assist with population management. Provide funding for up to additional 100 surge emergency maintenance contractors and facility maintenance staff. Provide a 5-person Tiger team to support current locking and control projects, and provide funding for 16 contracted skilled craftsmen for urgent high priority needs that exceed the current facility maintenance personnel. And you see how that breakdown there is to provide funding for emergency repairs at 35 million, the maintenance staff 15 million, 15.2 million in the amended, 15.5 in FY26. The Tiger team for the the locking controls at 248, in the amended 25, and FY26 at 1 million. And then also the additional skilled craftsmen, 1.1 in the amended and 2.6 in FY26. And so to your point, Mr. Chairman, that's kind of how we're going to try to expedite, along with the bed expansion in the private prisons and the modular units. We can get these Tiger teams in there along with our personnel.
I'm gonna
who,
slow you down for a second, Commissioner. Can we advance the slide that we see on here and the one you're,
I'm sorry.
we
Next
got your,
slide.
we got your slide deck, but I don't think
Next
that's
slide. There
matching
you
with
go.
with
There you
what
go.
you're
Sorry
seeing.
about that.
No, that's fine. Just want to make sure that those who
got-
are watching up there get to see it.
He got excited because I opened the door for him on that. So.
And we're talking about locks. Good call there, Hatchet.
And so that's gonna really speed up the process when it comes to replacing lock and control placements. I know we had that conversation about expanding that team. If it takes 4 or 5, let's get 5 more people in there. And so we heard you, and Moss Group and Guidehouse and CGL also noticed that was a need, and also the governor and his recommendations that put in the budget. So hopefully that would expedite that process.
So in the bidding process for these different projects, is your department able to do all that on its own, or do you actually have to work through Department of Administrative Services also?
Yeah, we could do some of it on our own, and then we'll probably, for the contractors, we can look at existing contracts that we already have with some of our vendors to be able to do that.
Okay.
You got questions across the panel, Chairman Robertson. Then Chairman Howard.
Chairman Hatchett kind of touched on this. So would there be a new RFP going out on these lock repair and replacement? Or are you using existing individuals to do this?
We're going to use existing state contract, what's on state contract to replace the lock and control system.
So there is no RFP. So there's no original RFP, right?
Yes, there is original RFP out. Al, if you want to speak to that, you can grab that mic.
Yeah, the Department of Administrative Services set up multiple contractors for the lock and control projects. They do other type of work for security. And so we put the design document out, and they all give us a quote, and we choose the best vendor for that.
And as part of that RFP, again, to something Chairman Hatchett mentioned, does it allow this work to go on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Or does
Yeah.
it prohibit Does it prohibit? We see DOT do it. I've seen it done in large jails where maintenance starts and doesn't stop until it's completed.
Yeah,
Because of the facility.
I don't know that we would do 24/7, but the goal of this project is to actually shut down half a facility and do multiple buildings at a time. What's taking so long right now is that we can only do one building at a time usually with the beds. And so the goal to increase the number of available beds is to shut down half a facility at a time, do 4 or 5 buildings at once. And that way we can get through quicker and do multiple facilities at the same time.
Is the request for the mobile units in order to help with this
Yes.
project?
Yes.
Yes,
Do we not have empty beds in the state currently?
No, not
No.
enough.
Do,
minimal.
okay, do we not have an empty facility in the state currently down South Georgia?
Autry's offline, but
Right.
it has about 500 beds available. There are offenders at Autry. Again, we're doing the same thing there. They're using half of the facility.
Well, back to the original question, the chicken and the egg, do we have to have the mobiles before we can start getting aggressive on replacing and designing locks?
Yeah, so I think to that point too, I think, we can utilize that 400, and I think it's like 446 private prison beds currently until we get those mobile beds online. So that kind of give us a little bit of a headway. Those mobile units will be hopefully within 12 months to be able to get those on the ground and give an additional 504 beds. And that'll give us enough time as we work and do the lock and control design and to go ahead and work on that design. And so by the time those mobile units get on site, we'll be ready to go on those projects.
Thank you.
I think what Chairman Robinson or Whip Robertson was kind of saying is what some of us are feeling is, that, our patience is, we're ready.
I am too.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think, hit on the 24/7. I mean, I think we're there and we need to do whatever we got to do to get it done, Commissioner. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You have a question from Chairman Albers.
Commissioner, if I could direct you to the provide for a 5-person Tiger team to support existing lock replacements. It's a $250,000 in the amended and then $1 million plus in the 26 budget. I guess I'm trying to reconcile the page before where we've got locks there and project managers, design, construction, et cetera, and then we've got it yet again here. Is that just a consistency issue? I'm trying to make heads or tails here.
So on the previous page, if you go back to it, it's for design and construction of lock replacement. That's mainly the design and the construction of locks. The Tiger teams are actually the personnel is actually going to be doing the labor to put those locks in addition to our facility personnel.
All right, maybe it would be helpful then prior to us having other meetings in a couple weeks to put all locks together in one area with a plan so we can see that from current beginning and end.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna back up. I hope this is helpful when we're giving you these questions because they're things that I'm looking at too.
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna flip back a page because you mentioned the locks and not having bed capacity. So the need for the mobile units for modular units for bed capacity while we do this lock thing and the 446 beds in private prisons. So go back to your slide that starts expanded bed capacity. I'm getting 446 beds in the private prisons for $6 million a year. I'm going to use the annual total, 5.9 million. But then the same roughly amount, a little bit less, or a little bit more rather, for 126 modular units costing me 93 million. I could do the private prison beds for 15 years and not do, and with that, I want to see if that's not a better use. I mean, look, I don't own any stock in any private prisons, never have, but I want to, if that's not a better use of we don't have to build the private prisons, they're there. Would that help us facilitate a ramp up of improving your locks quicker, which then we may be able to have the funds to do 24/7 turn, which is what you're hearing Whip Robertson and Chairman Hatchett say, to even further move this thing faster. Y'all may have thought through that. If you have, please feel free to comment, but that's what the numbers at least look like to me when I'm just looking at the numbers.
Yes, sir. And I think when you look at that, I think that's maxing out our private prison bed capacity. Currently at Coffee, Wheeler, and Jenkins, Coffee, there's 188 beds. Wheeler, there's 257 beds, and Riverbend only has 1 bed available. And so that's kind of maxing out the core civic side of the house. It's maxing out their bed capacity. So currently, as it stands right now, from a standpoint, if this recommendations go through, the private prisons will be maxed out as far as bed capacity.
We have another question. I don't know which mic's gonna work. I'm gonna turn them both on for you, Representative.
You're a
Reeves.
good man, Chairman. To follow up on what the chairman's asked, I'm just trying to make these numbers work. We say they're maxed out. Are we saying they can't build anymore? Because it appears to me that they have figured out how to build them cheaper than we have, or utilize the beds at less money. If they're built out, are we saying that there's no possibility that they can expand?
I mean, yes, it's a possibility that they can expand. We have to have those conversations with them to see how long will it take for them to expand that out. What I do know is the modular units could be delivered on the ground to us within 1 year, about a year.
I understand. So that is a concern. I'd like to see the difference, because that's a huge difference in bed cost there. And somewhere is the answer. It's too late for me to buy any stock in them, so you don't have to worry about the conflict. But I'd really be interested in knowing what's the real cost, and can we start heading down that rabbit hole?
Okay. Yes, sir.
No more questions right now, again. And again, thank you for doing it this way. Sorry, Chairman,
Representative Holcomb.
I almost called you Senator, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to these requests, because they are significant, and I think illustrate to some extent some level of crisis within the department, because the backlog number is almost 37 million, and then the emergency repairs is over 50 million. So has the department conducted a precise audit? So do you have every single thing that you need fixed, identified,
Yes.
and listed?
Yes. That's what that backlog number is. It's all our deferred maintenance that we've had identified for multiple years.
Okay. And then I'm interested in a different chicken and egg problem from Whip Robertson, which I think he correctly identified the challenge of getting the repairs made with working through the situation with the beds and the logistics and everything else. I'm interested in the problem of the staffing where we started. And my impression is that the staffing is somewhat related to the issues with the physical conditions of the various prisons to begin with. And if it is going to take 5 to 6 years to remedy these issues, then we're not likely to fix the staffing very quickly. Or do you disagree with that?
I think when you talk about the 5 to 6 year plan, that's the kind of for the projects that we identified. Like you said, we plan on taking one state prison offline, half of the prison offline, moving that population with the existing staff there, with the beds over to the other half of the prison, and utilizing private beds and hopefully the modular units. Be able to do these projects a lot faster. I can get you to hit the actual count of how many prisons we can have that we're going to complete within those 5 years.
Okay, let me ask it differently. How soon would we have certainty that every lock in our prison system works?
Certainty.
Yes.
I think once we get on, you got the lock and control timeline? It's 5 to 6 years.
Commissioner, real quick, are we not painting the Golden Gate Bridge here? As we move through these locks, as we're repairing them, aren't we having detainees, inmates, prisoners, whatever we want to call them on the other end, destroying the property?
Yes.
As we're moving through?
Yes.
So we're in a situation here
It's a
where
24-hour.
where
every
as
day.
we're repairing things, things are being damaged and destroyed, correct?
Correct.
Chairman Albertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't want to belabor the same question. I know you're a little bit under the weather and it's been a
Oh,
busy
felt
week
good.
and this is a lot of content. After the question that Chairman Tillery brought up about the cost differences by utilizing our private prisons, and I'm certainly glad to see my friends on the side of the aisle joining us in that chorus now. But knowing that the cost is less significantly, I happened to just communicate in text with a few folks in our private prisons who appears to be there's quite a bit of capacity, perhaps 1,200 beds in one, 800 full security prison beds that are available right now outside of that 466. So what I would like to ask is shortly after this meeting that we huddle together and find out what that true capacity might be, because there may be more available than we may know right now. Not saying that you wouldn't have known ahead of time, but I think this is an opportunity for us to expedite that process and leverage their good work at a much cheaper rate.
Okay,
Thank
yes,
you.
sir.
Any other questions right now? Okay. Don't have any other questions right now, Mr. Commissioner, keep on going.
All right, next slide, please. It's to redistribute, central repair funds, as you can see in the amended 25 at 2.2 million, and in FY 26, 2.2 coming out of state prisons to detention centers, distributed out to, detention centers and transitional center program for their capital repairs and maintenance as well. And our capital outlay, recommendations, vehicle replacements at, 12.8 million. This is based off of age and mileage. FF&E for Washington State Prison at 46.4 million. Design for a new state prison at 40 million in the amended 25. And of course, we talked about our long-term acute care unit at 6.2 in FY 26. And McRae State Prison additional construction to finish up that project in FY 26 at 15.5 million.
Do you have a timeline on the McRae facility completion yet?
It's complete. We got the certificate of occupancy, so hopefully we should be moving the offenders in here shortly, within the first couple of months here in this month.
Representative Williams.
I'm not a builder, Commissioner, but when McDonald's or Chick-fil-A build, they do a master plan. California looks like Georgia. Why are we spending 40 million to design a new prison? And are we going to use that same design instead of a new 40 million for each one?
No, we've done a lot of work on the design for on the Washington State Prison, so that 40 million is to kind of tweak some of that design and look at some of the ways we can we can improve the new prison site location, things of that nature. So that 40 million is going to go just for that work. We've done a lot of work with that with the design for Washington. It's going to be the probably the not the cookie cutter, so to speak, but the model for the prisons moving forward outside of a diagnostic facility. Once we start to replace a diagnostic facility, that's going to require a whole different plan. Yes.
So Commissioner, I know that a lot of these recommendations we've heard so far from the Bright House and other studies that have been done. I'm trying to figure out how to ask the question. Do we know the size of additional prisons that we want to build, learning all of the things that we've learned historically on size, workforce? Have we really studied that yet as to what the size of the ideal prison would be?
Well, I think it's going to come back down to that 10-year strategic plan when you look at it as far as future. But what I can tell you, the work that we've done on Washington, well, I wouldn't, my recommendation as it stands today wouldn't go above 1,500 single man cells. But again, we're going to look for the guidance of that strategic plan, that 10-year plan, looking at our population, looking at the offender population, and also the needs of the not only the offenders but for the workforce, as well as figure out what that size would be. But as it stands right now, when we looked at Washington, that will kind of be the ideal size, no more than that.
And just as a extra here, I guess the guidehouse study is not technically going to be complete until July?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So there's still going to be some things coming from their recommendations
Absolutely.
probably next year.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner, what's your current, well, I'm gonna let you get, I see you have one more slide, then I'll ask some follow-ups.
All right. Next slide, please. On this slide is a summary of the recommendations, the governor's recommendations for FY25 and FY26. I won't belabor and go over each line item, but you can see the amended FY25 and the governor's recommendations at 458.7 million, and in FY26, 144.6 million. And we would also just ask for your favorable consideration and supporting these recommendations. And again, just want to just echo the sentiments and just thank the governor's office and this body again for hearing us out. Study committees have been very helpful in providing some of these recommendations, along with Godhouse, Moss Group, and CGL work collaboratively with us, along with the governor's offices. I just want to just publicly thank them again for the work they've done on the amended budget and FY26 budget. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, and my team is here to answer any questions you may have as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. First, any questions? Any members have any follow-up questions? And if you could, leaving that slide up might be one, it keeps our ugly faces from showing up on folks who are watching online. But if you could throw that last slide back up, I think it's a good summary. All righty. Representative, let me get Representative Powell, sorry.
Chairman Powell.
Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, I just want to ask a couple of general questions, but
Chairman, hold the mic to your lips so we can hear you.
what's the current census?
49, about 50,000, 49,886 today.
45,000.
49,886.
Does the Department of Corrections, do y'all still categorize inmates by their security level?
Yes,
So it's minimum, medium,
close.
close. And are these inmates, are they mixed together in any of the facilities?
No, sir. Some of them, when you have our GCI plants, you might have some minimum security inmates or medium security inmates, I should say, and in there to carry out some of those duties and functions within the prison, but they're not housed in the same cell together.
How many county camps do we currently have?
21.
And what's the number of inmates that will be housed in those 21?
I can get you that number right quick. 4555. 4555.
And these would all be minimum security, I
Correct.
presume.
Medium, minimum. Yes, sir.
Can you give me a breakdown of the 49,000 medium, minimum, and close?
Yes, sir. I can.
Do you know what that might be? That
I know 75% of that population is violent. I can get you the breakdown of how many inmates we have, how many close security inmates we have, and maybe he's got the dashboard. You just get it right here.
Mr. Chairman, as it stands today, we're 11,547 close, medium 31,319, and minimum 6,988.
how many minimum are there?
6,988, I apologize.
Have we had, Commissioner, do you know, if we had any inquiries around the state from any of the counties that would like to have a county facility?
I haven't heard of any new inquiries. No, sir.
That's about 50,000 total,
Yes,
right out.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Representative Mathis.
Yeah, thank you again. After we had the meeting a few months ago down in McRae, we all emphasized uh, the, the cell phone and the drone problem. I see here the contraband interdiction, the amount of money that's in there. I want to be adamant that I want to see that we can stop these phones and these drones, because I believe that is where most of the problem is coming from. Now, you've said you've increased the amount of security you're going to do with the incoming mail. So if you do that and you don't shut down another part completely, I feel like that's going to increase. And what's happening in some of these small counties where the prisons are, they're having to catch these perpetrators. They're the ones that are flying the drones in, and they're going into county jails. And the counties are having to pay for those prisoners. You mentioned a minute ago we had to have health care. Well, there was one failed that had brought a drone in one of my counties, in Lisa's county. And they had to bring him to Grady. They had to stay 2 deputies 24/7 from a county paying for them to cover a prisoner that was committing a crime against a state prison. So I think we need, I know that's not completely in what you're doing, but I want this committee to be aware of that's happening. And those small counties that don't have large budgets and big tax base and that sort of thing, it's really, really a problem. We talked about that down there.
Yes, sir.
With the DA, we talked about that with the circuit judges, sheriffs, and we had several other folks in there that are affected by this. So I can't say enough that we need to somehow in this state shut down these phones and these drones going into these prisons. Because that is just, I cannot imagine that we'll allow that to happen.
Yeah, it's not allowing it to
But
happen.
I know we keep saying it's a federal thing. And we keep saying it, well, we gotta change it. I mean, if it ain't working, fix it. I'm old and you can see it, but that's what you do. When you got something happening and it ain't working, you fix it. But I appreciate what y'all trying to do, but that's gonna need to be done, in my opinion. And we gotta have these small counties that get hit hard without getting these prisoners in there that are, you know, causing this against the state prison, and then they're having to take care of. So it's a burden. It's a burden. And I do thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you. And then also let me just publicly thank, and since you mentioned it, our local partners in our contraband interdiction fight. You know, it's not just a problem here at GDC, but it's also a problem nationwide and also at the federal level with contraband and cell phones and drones, throwovers and things of that nature, introducing contraband into our facilities. But our local partners do a phenomenal job in helping us combat that and getting that out. And I do hear your concerns as far as you know, the deputies going to the hospital, because you know, we feel it as well too when we have to go stand at a hospital post. So but I appreciate you. Thank you.
Will Robertson.
Yeah, just a real quick point of personal privilege. Commissioner, I do appreciate you being here today. Would ask that everybody keep former Department of Corrections Commissioner Jim Weatherington's family in your thoughts and prayers. Jim passed away yesterday at home in Columbus. He was the police chief of the Columbus Police Department when Governor Barnes appointed him to the Department of Corrections. And after he retired from the Department of Corrections, he went back home and, under the encouragement of several of us, ran for mayor and was a very successful mayor there in Columbus. A good godly man and somebody that was a true role model to me and any law enforcement officer that ever come in contact with him. So if you'd please keep the Weatherington family in your prayers, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Watson. What's going on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, back on the staffing and the recruitment and onboarding and developing a marketing plan, just real quick, I guess, what are y'all doing now and what are they proposing that they're going to do different to help with recruiting and onboarding more staff?
And so what we're doing now, where I don't know if you might see some of our commercials, we're targeting on all platforms, whether it's social media, TV, radio, And so what we're going to do is go back to our consultant, do more focused targeting on those in those areas where we need to focus on, really trying to reach the demographic of population of the workforce that we need to retain in. Also included in that part of that budget, sometimes we kind of get backlogged from a centralized standpoint. I know it says centralized recruitment efforts for background checks. A lot of times that process gets backlogged a little bit, and so some of that funding will go to help speed up the process to get people on board, to get through the background process a little bit smoother.
Okay, one more follow-up, Mr. Chairman. On those modular units, you said those would last for 20, 30 years?
Yes, sir.
Which one was it? And then are those able to be moved around the state over the next 20 to 30 years?
Yes, they have the ability to move around the state, and they will last. I'll say, they told us 30 years, but I could give that little cushion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of observations, a question. And thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. I need to say that because I'm getting ready to go where the water tastes like cherry wine. But to Representative Mathis's point, a few years ago, we had a similar problem with the housing of state inmates that was playing havoc on rural county budgets, like my own. We solved that, and the state was reduced terrifically, and I know we can solve that problem. Counties shouldn't have to pay for state prisoner offenses, and you take 2 deputies, it's really tough on a rural community. But I want to reach back and tell me if I heard correct, that you have 2,600 vacancies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Requested 800 plus positions. With the problems, why 800? That's less than half of what you need. Why? I know there's a reason, but why are we not lowballing? That's not a good thing. Why are we coming in so low against what the need is? When you hear about, you can pass. I've come to Representative House District and see 4 or 5 cars at Smith at night. And I speed up because I don't want to be near there because 5 people can't save me. So why are we asking for 800 and a 2,600 need?
I think when you look at our staffing, our hiring practices, it just makes sense to fund what we actually need right now. There's no way that I could hire 2,600 officers in an amended year or fiscal year. But what I can tell you is that that 882 is funded quarterly for about 110 every quarter, and I can tell you right now we're averaging about 145 per quarter. So we're meeting that number, exceeding that number. But again, trying to hire 2,600 people in a fiscal year is just not possible. So you'll see future probably funding as we begin to fill those positions. We'll come back in the next budget cycle and ask for additional funding if we're successful in doing that.
So what you're saying, Commissioner, is that $20 million line item, 10 in the amended, then 20 in the 26 budget. We should expect to see that $20 million line item plus whatever increases we have in cost and pay raises for the next 4 to 5 years.
It should be, yes, if we're doing it right, and also to take into account the compression that we have for that.
So that $20 million is really an $80 to $100 million.
I'm sorry.
That $20 million is really then a $80 to $100 million.
Yes, somewhere around there.
Are there any other questions of members? Commissioner, Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 follow-ups. One is on the contraband issue. How does the current staffing levels impact the ability of the staff to conduct sweeps, either generally for the prisons, the common areas, and also for the cells? Does that impact the ability to address that problem?
We conduct shakedowns every day from the facility level, and then we also use our specialized teams to go in weekly to all of our facilities and shake down. What you got to realize, the contraband interdiction into the prison systems are a criminal organization. They're elaborate. They're flying multiple drones at a time to create diversion tactics, to try to defeat our drone systems, to try to just fly a dummy drone in and do throwovers. I mean, it's a very, very elaborate system. So to your point, yeah, it does stretch our staff thin while we're chasing a drone alert, while we're chasing a throwover alert, and trying to manage all that. The criminal element, they become very wise in trying to stretch us thin when it comes to that. Some even go to the point of you know, faking medical emergencies or having medical emergency to deplete that staff from going over there. I got to send 2 people out. And so if they stretch that thin, and typically what you'll see is once that offender goes out, or 2 offenders go out, whether I got to send 2 or 4, you see drones and/or throwers pick up. So it's a constant battle when it comes to that fight with contraband. But I think firmly believe if you can makes a lot of headway with the managed access system and blocking these cell phone signals. That's how they're coordinating and getting most of that contraband in. That will be a huge impact in the way they get it in.
And my last question is, we talked about improving some of the infrastructure and then improving some of the staffing issues. Is there any attention, or was there any attention given to, or is there a plan on improving or enhancing the use of data analytics within the department to help inform decisions?
Yes, we do that now. Yes, sir.
Is there anything to advance it in the proposal?
Only thing, not really in the proposal per se, other if you start breaking down like what we're doing on onboarding and recruitment and things that we're doing with the officer tablets, that'll probably try to tie back into that. And the body camera tasers, things of that nature with data. But other than that, I think most of those recommendations are going to come out probably in most likely in the Guidehouse report, Guidehouse Moss Group report coming in June or July.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for any members? Chairman Hatchett? Well, Commissioner, I want to tell you again, thank you for coming. We're going to keep asking hard questions. I don't necessarily think you've shied away from them. So please know that we're going to keep asking because there's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
One thing that Representative Williams asked earlier was about comparison within the department of, for instance, I think he had the mental health care workers pay. And he asked you how that compared to teachers, DJJ. You told him it brought him up to parity with DJJ, still left us a little below teachers. I don't want to compare teaching to being a prison guard. That's not my goal at all. But we know we have issues with staffing our schools. Our average teacher pay, our starting teacher pay in Georgia is now $43,000. Remember that almost every system in the state has been able to waive Title 20. So they don't necessarily have to follow our pay scale anymore, but that is what the pay scale sets for Georgia, and that's what we fund right now. Starting pay 43. Average teacher salary, according to the Southeastern Regional Education Board, for Georgia teachers now is $64,000. I don't bring that up in a comparison to prison guards, but I do bring it up in a way to say you're talking about being happy of getting your employees to $40,000, and I think we need to we need to realize that you don't set someone up for failure.
Yes.
And that's something that we're going to need to address as our body because we're the only ones constitutionally able to do so. Please do know that I've never been known as someone who was easy with money. So the questions, when you're asking for these dollars, they are going to be hard. And please do help us get our head around specifically that question I asked you on bed space. We
Yes,
want to
sir.
make sure that we're making wise investments with taxpayer dollars. We want to make investments. We want to make sure they're wise.
And we'll get that to you. Yes, sir.
Anything else, Chairman Hatchett?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, very much for being here. And I think you've done fine considering you've been a little under the weather. You know, the governor agreeing to get this information out there is maybe a double-edged sword for you. It gives us longer to come up with questions and ask you questions about where the money is that might be going. You know, I know Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's an old adage, but we probably want this subdivision built very quickly. So I know these issues didn't happen overnight, but we're going to push hard.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll have many more subcommittee meetings, and I appreciate you doing this. And I think that being said, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.